Ideal Protein is a doctor-designed, coach-led ketogenic weight loss protocol that uses food as medicine to empower you to lose weight and live your healthiest life.
And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. This is our special episode titled Group Therapy. It's where myself, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and my fellow editors sit down and talk about what's going on here in Livingston Parish. I'm going to let them introduce themselves real quick for those of you who are listening, so you can put a voice to a name. We are going to start on my and the viewers' right.
Hey, this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond. I'm sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And I have already introduced myself, so we're going to jump right into it. First and foremost, we are going to talk about the elephant in the room. It's fall sports time. And specifically, I know later today you'll be hitting up Doyle's first ever home volleyball game, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's one of those things that they just kind of, kids just kind of said, hey, can we do volleyball? Can we have a volleyball team? And went and started talking to principals and athletic directors, and lo and behold, here they are.
Well, I guess that's how seeds are planted. So
yeah,
that's definitely on everybody's radar. Of course, volleyball going to be starting around the parish as well as swimming and cross country, correct?
Exactly.
But big sport, football. Football has started. We had our scrimmages this past week, and we're coming up on jamborees this Friday, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about who's going to be playing who.
Okay, well, we'll start off Thursday night. We're going to start with the Albany Jamboree. You'll have Albany's going to play Independence, or I'm sorry, that's going to be Springfield playing Independence in the first game at 6 o'clock. And then around 7:30, it's going to be Albany versus East Iberville.
Okay. So going to be a lot of action over there on the east side of the parish, and Albany and Springfield sharing a jamboree. That's kind of become a regular occurrence.
Exactly. That's kind of, then you get to kind of hang out, and I know Coach Surpass will probably hang out a little bit to watch and see what Albany's going to do. They'll be playing each other in week 3, I think, this year. So you get to do a little scouting, and I'm sure Coach Knight will be watching Springfield at the same time, just trying to see what's going on. So.
And moving over, that takes care of the 2 small schools. So moving over into our 5As, what are they going to be doing?
So we're going to have, this is one of those things where guys start talking to each other, and we're going to have Denham Springs is going to host Walker in the All-Star Jamboree on Friday.
Ooh.
And it's, and I talked to both of the coaches, Coach Beard at Denham Springs, Coach Mahaffey at Walker, and basically, it's a lot of times coaches maybe have a tendency to say, okay, I'd rather not play somebody in my district or somebody I'm going to play. But for both of them, it's just, hey, let's compete. Let's see what the kids can do, under the lights in a rivalry type situation, and see how they respond. So that they're looking at it as it's something we can build on. And it's kind of one of those things where one of the guys said, let's be honest. If we're looking at what happens in a jamboree, I think this was Coach Beard. He kind of said if we're going to hinge on what's happening in the jamboree and we can't get better to week 7, then we're not very good coaches. So
sure.
So
and everybody's a little rusty. I mean, scrimmages are scrimmages, but jamboree is really the first time you get that full game speed.
Exactly, and you probably throw some special teams in there, which they really didn't do in these scrimmages last week. It was kind of, they would say punt, and you kind of move the ball about 30 yards down the field, but this is where you actually get to throw some of that into the situation, and for some people it's maybe the first time they've done it.
Sure. So last but certainly not least, we have Live Oak, who I believe you said is hosting Helen Cox.
That is correct, and it's one of those things where watched Live Oak last week again in their jamboree, and it was kind of like or their scrimmage, and had a couple missed opportunities. Had the opening kickoff was called back on a penalty. They lost two interceptions on back-to-back possessions really quickly, but they were able to bounce back and beat St. Louis Catholic 21-0. So kind of looking to build on that, and then talking to Coach Westmoreland, just looking at Helen Cox is probably going to give them an idea just in the athleticism of Helen Cox and kind of what they're bringing, maybe an idea what they're going to see, at different points during the season from other teams. So that's how they're looking at their jamboree opponent this week.
Interesting. Okay. So to wrap up the sports section real quick, want to let folks know that the football section, sports next week, which would be that it's not technically a full week of September, but our September 2nd edition before the first slate of regular season games will be dedicated to football. So be on the lookout for that. Also want to go ahead and interject real quick and let folks know that starting in September, we are going to be separating this particular show, Group Therapy. We're going to be moving more into. We're going to sit down and speak with David, might have a guest, and we're going to sit down and speak with Rob, might have a guest. They will be independent of each other, so be on the lookout for that. Starting next week, actually. I was going to say starting next month, but it is starting next week. I was out for 2 weeks, COVID quarantine, for those of you who were wondering why. I remained unsymptomatic, as well as my wife and my youngest son, but my middle son, 18-year-old, did have it. So we had to stay at home, make sure we didn't infect anybody else. So moving over to Mr. David James Gray. We are quite a few things to talk about here today. First and foremost, of course, we have the mask mandate that lasts until next week. We are expecting a press conference next week on that, correct?
Yes, I mean, based on history, he would have one before, in September 1st. He would typically have one at least the day before the proclamation ends, and maybe 2 days before, just depending on, I guess, his schedule.
Okay, so we will be on the lookout for that. Please keep those mask mandates in mind. Sticking with COVID. We do have, I suppose, for people that were on the fence about getting the vaccine, the FDA is moving forward in a direction by already granting regular status to the Pfizer vaccine. Still nothing for Moderna as of yet. This is Wednesday, August 25th. But tell us a little bit about, you were the one who covered sort of that process and, of course, the reaction from local officials. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, no, that was the news that state leaders, Governor Edwards, and healthcare personnel were waiting to hear, and they've kind of hinted at that the last month or so, talking about that this full approval for the Pfizer vaccine could be coming at any moment. And actually, based on reports from the Associated Press and other national outlets, it was going to be announced Friday and then got pushed to Monday. But yeah, so now Monday, that announcement was made official. So it has received the regular it's no longer under just the emergency use authorization that the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines are. Pfizer has now gotten full approval from the FDA. So what that does basically is they kind of open the doors for universities to now make their own vaccine requirements. Southeastern Louisiana University didn't run this week, but that will run in next week's paper. They, as part of the University of Louisiana school system, that will be the COVID vaccine will now be a requirement to enroll in school there. That's along with, like I said, other universities that are part of that Louisiana University of Louisiana system. New LSU president William Tate, he's already talked about, well, first of all, students at LSU, they have to either present their vaccination papers, or they're gonna have to do regular monthly COVID-19 testing. So universities they've already announced plans to that once it was granted FDA approval, they would require it. Now they're just kind of in that logistical part of the process, just getting it all together, because there will be opt-outs like there are for any other vaccine. And Governor Edwards, he's also said that the state would probably add the COVID vaccine to its list of scheduled vaccines once it got FDA approval. And he's also said that they're kind of working through those logistical issues right now.
So lots moving forward, and you talked about LSU. I'm not sure what Southeastern had done, but LSU, a very splashy announcement earlier this week. I guess that would have been yesterday morning. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 had kind of planned a tandem press conference, and it was expected that they were going to announce that you would have to have a negative COVID test or a vaccine card to get into their games. Well, LSU just went on social media and said, yeah, you're going to have it. Yeah. Kind of pulled the rug out from a lot of other people, but very, very splashy announcement, especially for someplace like this.
Yeah. I mean, the first SEC school to make that announcement. Yeah, you have to either have proof of the vaccine or have a negative test that was taken within 72 hours of kickoff. So the home schedule starts September 11th, I believe, versus McNeese State. They got 7 home games this year. And those games, especially once you get to that SEC slate, I mean, that stadium's usually rocking. So I mean, you got Auburn, Florida, and A&M here this year. So I mean, some of LSU's biggest rivals in those games usually get the biggest crowd. So they haven't announced there I haven't seen any tailgating policies yet, because that'll be another factor because, as much as LSU is known for Tiger Stadium, Death Valley, it's also just as known for its tailgating, which draws more people than can fit in the stadium. So
Right.
I mean,
it's the party before the party.
yes.
Right.
So there will be some restrictions. They said they should be announcing them soon. I haven't seen any restrictions as of yet, but that September 11th date's coming up pretty fast, so I'm sure they'll have something out soon.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to be on the lookout for that because for some folks, tailgating in the fall is it's a lifestyle.
Yeah,
they'll even for a 7 o'clock kickoff, they'll be out there at 7 a.m. ready
and
to start
mask
the
will
party.
be required. That is another thing for 5 and older.
Right. If you are on campus, masks are going to be required. LSU did put out that statement. So, getting a little more local. First and foremost, before we speak about the parish council, which is coming up, this was a few weeks back while I was under COVID quarantine, but I wanted to bring it up on this show. We did get our census results for Livingston Parish. It showed that we were one of the top growing parishes in Louisiana. Tell us a little bit about those findings.
Yeah, no, it was pulling it up right now, the story. It was the Livingston Parish had the seventh fastest growth rate in the state, an 11.1% increase from 2010 and 2020. So that just shows that people have been moving here. I know me and you were kind of talking about it earlier that it's down from the year just before the flood based on the general estimates that parish leaders had at that time, but it is showing that compared to the rest of Louisiana, it is people are moving back here, even if it's not to the level that it was right before the flood. So I mean that was pretty much the big update with that, and really there was a lot of growth in the Baton Rouge area as well. Ascension Parish, next door had an 18% growth. The West Baton Rouge Parish had 14.3. So the Baton Rouge area had a pretty big growth. I mean, obviously outside of East Baton Rouge Parish.
Sure.
So just continuing that movement that's that's been happening in the capital region for the last decade or so.
Sure. So lots to be lots to consider when you're talking about future growth and things like that. But one of the things that has always been considered is zoning. It's been a big topic of discussion starting before COVID. That was back when I was covering the parish council. Came up mid-2019. They even had a master plan committee developed to it. And kind of COVID slowed a lot of that down. But we are expecting some movement on that, at least in addition of that to the ordinance book. There's going to be a lot more going forward. We will have Tracy Gerlinghouse and Parish Council Chairman Gary Frog Talbert come talk about that. But between that, tiki tubing, and a bond issuance, I'm expecting a pretty packed and interesting meeting tomorrow.
Well, I don't know about packed because it's Zoom.
Well,
so.
true. Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, no. Tomorrow there will be some a lot of issues to be discussed, a lot of important issues, and yeah, you kind of talked about tiki tube, and that was the issue during the last, or one of the top issues during the last parish council meeting, and that's going to be brought up again this parish council meeting. Livingston Parish, Leighton Ricks is actually going to be discussing some, and starting the discussion of what safety measures or what an ordinance will look like to sort of regulate more safety along for tubers along the Amite River, because right now there's nothing regulating tubing in the parish, not just on the Amite. Everyone thinks that tiki tubing is being picked on, but I mean this is an issue that they're not trying to do this just for tiki tubing, just for tubing in general. So that's kind of what Mr. Ricks is going to be talking about tomorrow. He kind of talked about he doesn't believe that you should shut down a business, but it's also now gotten to the point to where he and other leaders feel like something needs to be done just to mitigate as much danger as possible, because like he told me this earlier today on a phone call, these are adults making decisions whether or not they want to go tubing, but also the business does bear responsibility to at least make it safer. So that's kind of, say he has no intention of shutting anyone down. He doesn't want to do that, but they just want to now, after, because this summer there was 2 deaths and about 30 people, in July had to be rescued in separate occasions because after all the rain we had this year and all the debris that's just piling up on that, or underneath the water surface of the river, it makes for a dangerous, situation. So that's what they're just trying to do, just trying to see what an ordinance will look like to just to regulate more safety.
And there are some other smaller things on the agenda, but of course, be looking at livingstonparishnews.com for those reports to come out after David has participated or watched the meeting from afar. One other thing I did want to discuss, and David, I'm not sure if you went or if you participated as well. The 5K run for Denham Springs cross country went pretty well, didn't it? Who you went?
I just went and took some pictures. Yeah, it was a good turnout.
That was at the beginning of my quarantine. It just popped in my head because I actually sat on my porch and watched them run by because I couldn't do anything else.
First weekend of August.
Yeah.
Yep. No. They just and it raised money for the cross country program. Is that correct? Yeah.
That is correct.
So that was just good to get out in the morning. Got me up working in the morning because for 5Ks they start super early, so I had to be there around like 7:30 or something like that. So on a Saturday morning, but I wasn't running, so it wasn't too bad.
At least you weren't running.
Yeah.
So anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Gray?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bessie, I know people were wondering a lot about the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education meeting. They met last week, and it was a very, I guess, chaotic might be a little strong, but at times it kind of was chaotic. But the Bessie board voted to adjourn early, right as they got to the item on the agenda that was going to discuss Attorney General Jeff Landry's opinion that Bessie and not the governor has the authority to issue a mask mandate or mask requirement. So that was, that led to a lot of parents wanting to come, and that's been, a topic this school year, very heavily debated topic about whether or not students should be forced to wear masks in schools, or whether or not the governor has the power to make masking a requirement in schools, or if it should be left up to school districts to determine their own masking policy. Parents at the Livingston Parish School Board meeting right before the school year started, they came there and voiced their opinions because Livingston Parish is complying with the governor's mandate, as are all other school districts that I'm aware of. We haven't heard of one that said they're not following the masking mandate. So Bessie was supposed to talk about that and possibly vote on it, and they kept asking the people in the crowd to put on masks because most of the people that were there were people who were in opposition to the mask mandate and therefore weren't wearing masks, or from what Bessie said in the statement this week, weren't wearing them correctly. And then they led to some chants, and a couple times it got a little rowdy. That's a good word, rowdy, not chaotic.
Rowdy is a good word.
Yeah, so
it was definitely rowdy.
So yeah, and so I mean, ultimately Bessie, because they could not get order in the room, voted to adjourn early, which left the governor's mandate in place, and they sent out a statement earlier this week saying they have no plans to hold a special meeting to tackle the subject again, and they're not scheduled to meet until October. So I mean, that would be well past the governor's the end of his mask mandate, though it'll most likely be extended next week.
We will see. And speaking of the mask mandate, do want to mention that at this time, Springfest has been scheduled. That it's going to be interesting how that lines up with the mask mandate, because that too is at the very beginning of October. Not long after that, the Livingston Parish Fair is still on, still scheduled at this time. We want to remind folks, that's why we're saying this, at this time. And that includes sports and just about anything else, okay? At this time, these things are still going forward. And then we also heard, oh, goodness, hello, spring. Not spring the season. Spring is in a physical spring. We also heard today that Girls' Night Out is still scheduled. So at this time, those things are still going forward. Be expected to have some mitigation going on, masks to be required. But as of right now, they're moving forward. Now, I don't know how they would enforce some sort of mask mandate at Fall Fest. That's a lot of people coming from a lot of different directions, but we shall see. So, thank you, Mr. David.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, anything else you'd like to add? Anything we might have missed?
I'm good. We did find out today that Denham Springs' season opener at Mandeville in football is going to be played on Thursday instead of Friday, next Thursday.
Remember that if you were a Denham football fan, they are traveling to meet the Skippers?
That is correct.
Hey, look at me. So, yeah, they are traveling to play the Mandeville Skippers for their season opener. As Rob just said, that'll be on Thursday. Thank you for that information, sir. So one last time, I'm going to have these gentlemen, even though they both just spoke, I'm going to let them introduce themselves before we check out today. So we're going to start on my left this time.
Hey, this is Rob D. Arman. I'm the sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. I appreciate y'all's patience. I know we missed 2 weeks. Again, I was on COVID quarantine, but I am fine. I am healthy, and appreciate those who were thinking about my family and I when we were dealing with that. And I do want to thank these two gentlemen for their patience and thank them for jumping back into the booth with me. Again, starting next week, we will have separate shows. We'll have a sports show and then a lifestyle and a news show. Might have some guests coming in during that time as well, so stay tuned for that. I want to remind folks that the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. And be on the lookout tomorrow night, especially after the parish council, because I'm sure David will have some interesting comments regarding tubing in Livingston Parish. We do hope you have a great day. Please stay healthy, stay safe, and try to stay cool. Still hot out there. And we will see you next time.